Now in this section, we are going to talk about the different determinants of a product's price elasticity of supply. That is, we are going to learn about what are the key characteristics, the key properties of each individual product that determine whether it will have a supply which is elastic or inelastic. Now, as we go through building our understanding of these different determinants of a product's price elasticity of supply, we will also learn why do agricultural products have a relatively inelastic supply as compared to manufactured products which have a relatively more elastic supply. So we want to do two things in this video: the general determinants of price elasticity of supply of any product, and as we go through them, we want to also build our understanding of why agricultural commodities have inelastic and manufactured products elastic supply. Now, just to make sure that everything is clear, let me just tell you that these manufactured products, what they mean is simply anything, any good that can be produced in a factory. That is what we mean by manufactured good. And this is a general observation that you will find in reality. So this is something that the examiner will quite often ask you in reference to your knowledge of the determinants of a product's price elasticity of supply. So to begin with, the first key determinant, the first key factor that determines whether the supply will be elastic or inelastic is, we say, the length of the production process, which simply means how long it takes to make a good. Now, if a good takes a long time to produce, so let's say there is a good which takes 8 months to produce, think of apples. And on the other hand, think of a product like car, which maybe takes 2 weeks to produce. Now, as far as the price elasticity of supply is concerned, you see, if the price of both these goods increase today, then you can't suddenly make more apples because you just need a lot of time before you can grow new apples. So the quantity supplied of apples, it won't be able to increase a lot, maybe just a little bit. So inelastic supply, if you have a product that takes a lot of time to make. Whereas if the price of cars increase, you can very quickly make new cars. You don't need a lot of time. If you're already running a car making manufacturing plant, maybe you will take a couple of days or a couple of weeks or a couple of months. So if the price increases, you can increase the quantity supplied quite a lot. You can respond significantly. So longer the period of production, the longer it takes to make a product such as agricultural goods, the more inelastic the supply will be. So this is the first determinant of a product's price elasticity of supply, the length of production process. And the shorter it takes to make a product, the more responsive the producer can be, and therefore the more elastic the supply of a product will be. So that's your first determinant of product's price elasticity of supply, and how that implies that agricultural commodities will have an elastic and manufactured goods elastic supply. Now, the second determinant of a product's elasticity of supply is storability. That is, the ease with which the product can be stored. Now again, if you think about an agricultural product such as apples. Now let's assume as a farmer you have grown 100 apples and you are almost there to harvest them. And then you get the news that the price of apples has fallen in the market. Now you see, apple is an agricultural commodity, something that is not easy to store. You can store apples, but you will need specialist storage facilities such as cold storages or freezers and so on and so forth, which are not available to a lot of farmers. So if the price falls and you have grown 100 apples, then if you don't bring them to the market, they will just rot since you can't easily store them. So regardless of how much the price falls or what happens to the price, you will pretty much, bring these 100 apples to the market. The quantity supplied, it won't change or respond according to the falling or increasing price. So when storage is difficult, then the supply of the product will be inelastic. The producer won't be able to respond. Price falls, you still have to bring the amount into the market. Similarly, if the price increases, then if you don't have any stored apples, you can't suddenly respond and increase the quantity supplied a lot. Again, tells you that agricultural commodities, since it's difficult to store these products, therefore they will have an elastic supply. On the other hand, if you think about manufactured goods, think about toys, think about shoes, think about clothes. If the price of clothes suddenly falls, then as a producer, you can just take them off the shelves and keep them in the store. They won't rot. You don't need any specialist storage facilities. You can just throw them in any empty room. And therefore, if the price of manufactured goods fall and it is very easy to store these manufactured goods, you can respond by reducing the quantity supplied a lot. Therefore, elastic supply. And similarly, if in the future the price of these manufactured goods, let's say, increases, then you can just open your store and suddenly increase the quantity supplied a lot. You can bring your products out from the store and into the market. So elastic, responsive producers of manufactured goods, elastic supply of manufactured products, and inelastic supply of your agricultural commodities because it is difficult to store them. Then the next determinant of PES that you need to know about is the availability of excess capacity. Now, some of you may know what excess capacity means, but let me just explain it over here. So let's assume there is a factory over here. So let's draw a few chimneys. So there is a factory. And let's assume it runs the usual working hours of 9 to 5 p.m. Now, in any factory, if you ask them that, look, there is some emergency or maybe the price has suddenly increased, can you produce more than what you are currently producing? Then, this factory can run from 9 to 9 p.m. It can make sure that every piece of equipment and every worker is working, and maybe they are working overnight, and they can somehow increase the output beyond what they were normally producing. So that is the sense which we say that, look, firms, they usually have some excess capacity. They can produce more than what they are generally producing. They can sort of bring into use some old machinery that they were ignoring. They can bring into use maybe a few more workers. Maybe they can ask their security guards to put in a helping hand, and so on and so forth. You can think of 100 ways of how you can produce more than what you are normally producing. Now, the greater the amount of excess capacity that a firm may have, maybe there is a recession and you are sitting idle, your machineries are out of use. So that is where it says you have a lot of excess capacity. Now, greater the excess capacity you have, the greater the ability of the producer to respond to increases in price. So if the price increases and you have a lot of excess capacity, you will quickly start making use of all those machines and things that were just sitting idle, and you will be able to produce a lot more, and quantity supplied will increase. It will respond to changes in price significantly. Now, as far as manufactured goods are concerned, as we said, they are produced in firms. Firms usually do have excess capacity, or, therefore they can respond to changes in price, and their supply is elastic. Now, if you think about agricultural products, now agricultural products are grown on farms on a piece of land. And usually farmers, they would, use all of the land that is available to them. They won't leave any piece of land just sitting there idle. So there is hardly any excess capacity as far as agricultural commodities are concerned. And therefore, if the price suddenly increases, the farmers, they would love to produce more, but it will be very difficult for them. So this third determinant, the availability of excess capacity, it again tells us that, look, agricultural producers, agricultural goods, there won't be enough excess capacity, and therefore the producers, they won't be able to respond when prices change. The supply will be inelastic. And then a related determinant number 4 of products PES, we say is the ease of adding capacity. Now, make sure that you know how this is different from determinant number 3. Determinant number 3, we are saying the amount of excess capacity that is available. Now we are saying another determinant is the ease with which you can add capacity. So if this firm, let's assume it is at full capacity, it has no excess capacity. What it can do is, it can, just next door, it can set up maybe a smaller plant. And this is where we are saying that, look, it can add capacity. And maybe if it doesn't build a new plant, maybe it can hire more workers, it can buy a couple of new machines and quickly add capacity. So therefore, again, if price increases, as far as manufactured goods are concerned, things that are made in factories, there is, adding capacity is relatively easy, and therefore you can suddenly increase the quantity supplied, respond a lot to increases in price. Elastic supply of manufactured goods. Now coming back to this piece of land, this farm over here, adding capacity would mean that maybe you buy the field next door, or maybe you buy more harvesters or tractors and so on and so forth, which is possible, but again, relatively much more difficult. It's not easy for a poor farmer to just buy a new piece of land and therefore add capacity because price of the product is increasing and he wants to make more. So adding capacity, it's difficult as far as agricultural products are concerned, and therefore the producers, they can't respond a lot to changes in price in elastic supply of agricultural products. And then the fifth determinant is, we say, ease of switching between products. Again, let me explain what that means with reference to agriculture and manufactured products. So just imagine that you are, let's say, making cars in a factory. Now, ease of switching production means that how easy it is to use the same resources, the same factory and the same machines to maybe make something other than cars, maybe make jeeps or maybe make tractors or any other vehicle. That is what we mean when we say ease of switching products. Now, as far as manufactured goods are concerned, and let me just use some example other than these cars, because there are a lot of much more simple manufactured goods. So you can think of clothes, or you can think of mobile phones. Now, if a mobile phone or a cloth making firm wants to switch production, in terms of cloth making firm, maybe it would mean that it is making formal clothes and it starts making casual clothes. Maybe it means that it is making shoes and now it starts making t-shirts and so on and so forth. So it's switching between different products. A mobile phone making company, maybe it can start making internet routers, maybe it can start making other communication systems and so on and so forth. That is what we mean by ease of switching production. Maybe it can start making tablets instead of phones and so on and so forth. So again, as you can see, there is a possibility as far as these manufactured products are concerned. I'm not saying it's very easy, but you can switch production. If you have equipment to make clothes, maybe you also can use that to make caps or maybe to make ties. So you can switch production. But again, if you think about agricultural commodities, if you are growing apples that require a certain fertility of the land, certain characteristics of the land, the weather, the rain, and so on and so forth. So you can't just use the same piece of land to, let's say, switch production to mangoes. So switching production is difficult as far as agricultural products are concerned. Switching production is easier as far as manufactured goods are concerned. So let me write it down over here. So difficult to switch between products. Here it is again easier to switch between products. What it means for elasticity is that, look, if you are making clothes and the price of caps increase, you can certainly switch production and therefore start making more caps, and therefore the quantity supplied will respond. Cloth making firms will start switching to cap making. So the more easy it is to switch between products, the more elastic the supply will be. The more responsive, the more flexible the producer will be. Whereas if it is difficult to switch between products, if the price of mangoes increase and you can't just start producing mangoes instead of apples, then the quantity supplied of apples, it won't be able to, of mangoes, if the price of mangoes is increasing. You won't be suddenly able to produce more mangoes instead of apples. You won't be able to respond as far as quantity supplied of mangoes is concerned. So inelastic supply of agricultural commodities again. And let me now just give you the last determinant that I want you to know, which is very, very easy but useful. And let me just get rid of all of these things over here. The last determinant of a product's price elasticity of supply, we say simply, is the time period under consideration. So PES, remember we are saying given a change in price increase or decrease, we want to see by how much the quantity supplied changes and responds. Now, if you are thinking about, change in price and the response of quantity supplied within the next day, then of course, quantity supplied won't be able to change a lot within the same day. But if you are thinking about, okay, by how much does the quantity supplied changes, let's say after 2 months. So you are, thinking in terms of a longer time period. Now in 2 months, more producers will be able to respond whether price is increasing or decreasing, simply because they have more time to respond. If they want to switch production, they have more time to do that. If they want to add capacity, they have more time to do that, and so on and so forth. So just remember, the longer the time period that we are talking about, the more elastic the supply will be, and the shorter the time period we are considering, the more inelastic the supply will be. And this is generally true about any product, not just agricultural versus manufactured goods. So therefore, remember, these are generally the determinants of price elasticity of supply, which are applicable to any product. So you can think of any product and you should be able to apply that, okay, if the production process is long, it will have an elastic supply. If it is difficult to store it, it will have an elastic supply, and so on and so forth. But specifically remember how you can apply these to explain in your essay questions why agricultural products have relatively inelastic supply and why manufactured products have more elastic supply.